Good morning to everyone. So let me kind of give a background on how this topic came about. Now, when I moved back to Malaysia in 2012 and I started working with different corporations, one of the things that I still hear is people saying staff today are not loyal. And initially, I was a bit surprised because I was wondering, what do you mean? That's one. Then I also started hearing stories of managers who give cold shoulder to the staff whenever the staff put in a resignation letter, which means the manager was very friendly and very supportive of the staff. But the minute the staff tender, the manager just give a cold shoulder and basically treat the staff very coldly. And I was wondering what's going on. So as I started talking to different people and as I run more leadership programs in Malaysia, one of the things that became obvious is we tend to take things personally in the workplace. That's one. Secondly, there's a very strong desire for this sense of loyalty. And as I work with the different clients and different managers, one of the things that they found useful is recognizing that, hey, it's really not about loyalty. It's really about mutual benefits, or what sometimes we call a win-win situation. And that kind of got me to realize perhaps this is a great platform for me to be able to share what are some of the things that has been helpful to some of my participants in my program, in a way that it's more towards shifting our paradigm, right? Because before we do anything different, we need to be able to think differently, right? So just a bit of background about myself as we start this morning. And this is for those who are joining us for the first time. So my name is Isaac. I run an organization called People Performance. We are a learning and organizational development company. And because of that, the key focus area for my business is in the area of culture, leadership, and team. I think the previous talks I've given have covered the different modules of it. And today we're going to talk specifically very much on the mindset of loyalty. Right? I've also shared a bit about my career. And what's interesting about what I do is I've crossed many different industries, from corporation manufacturing to charity to FMCG, as well as training. And it allowed me to see things from very different angles. And I work in Singapore and Malaysia, and I have opportunity to deal with multinationals. And therefore, it has enriched me in my perspective, right? I've also shared some leadership development because if you think about it, one of the most important development programs in organization is leadership development, because leadership shapes culture and culture shapes how the organization works. Now, over the next 15 minutes, what I would like to do is I'd like to cover these 4 areas, and we will try to have some Q&A. Now, usually our session official is 10 to 11. From past records, we tend to extend about another half an hour. So if you find the session useful, stay with us for another half an hour. Right. So 4 things that I want to be able to bring across this morning. Firstly is recognizing the changing needs of talent today. And we need to recognize that. Now, we may complain, we may say they are like this, they are like that. But guess what? When you and I, if you're my age group, when we first started career, the previous generation would say that about us. So one thing we realize, every generation change, and question is how do we recognize and make the change needed? Secondly, be aware of the unconscious bias that makes leading challenging. So one of the areas that's very obvious when I work with people and leaders is it's a lot of the unconscious bias we have. So in today's session, you will probably walk out having to reflect on some of the assumptions you have as a leader, and hopefully that will get you to become a better leader. Then I'm going to talk about adopting a new perspective towards leading, and this is about shifting it from loyalty to mutual benefits. And finally, the importance of career conversation. So today, I'm going to talk about 2 particular skill sets that I work with leaders to help them embrace this whole idea of mutual benefits, right? Now, I put in 2 logos, and those are my new managers development program. If I have time at the end, I will share. If not, please write into me on that. I've broken down to this morning's presentation into 3 sections. Firstly, we talk about the truth about loyalty, and please get your phone ready. I'm going to get you guys to do some responses online afterwards. Then I'm going to talk about the shift. Why is this shift? And then finally, I'm going to share with you the tools. That's how I'm structuring this morning talk. All right, so let's go to our phone. So if you go to menti.com and you key in this code 5516323. If you key in this code, I will see you at the Menti site.
Okay, so I hope our participants can join the session. Try to put in the numbers.
Yeah.
And give some thought on the questions.
All right. So if you are, Dr. let me just put down the code in case those who came later.
Okay, just put it in chat box.
Yep.
For time being, for those who are actually along the way when we are actually having this discussion or session, feel free to drop in your opinion or questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box, so that I can actually bring it to the Mr. Isaac attention, and we can have discussion about it. Just to highlight that we are not allowing any audio interception, or we're not allowing that because we need to actually ensure the smooth flow of the session.
Let's see how was the response like. We have 7 says very important, 1 say important, 4 says somewhat important, right? So this is about giving a reflection to the different, our perspective, because if you think about it, our perspective and what we believe drives the way we behave, affects our attitude in the workplace. And therefore, understanding what people think about it is critical to the whole process.
Majority of people, they value loyalty.
Yeah, so majority values loyalty, right? In fact, if you think about it just now, 8 of them says loyalty. Now, the next question on your Menti, you should get this. If not, you'll refresh your screen. It'd be great to know from the 46 people with us this morning, what are the age range are you guys at? And this is going to help us understand, because one of the challenge I noticed about this whole topic of loyalty is people say the younger generation is not loyal. So if you look at this, majority that's tuning in to us this morning are 50 and above. So this is based on how many people have responded. Now, so once again, as we look through this, this is interesting chart, because after I'll show you another statistics that talks about people in the workforce. And these are the different age range of people, or some are still putting in, but at the moment, the most people tuning in are those 50 and above, right? And this will be an interesting talk, because a lot of things that I'm going to share to you today, it's a bit personal. It is a bit sensitive, because loyalty is a humanistic value, right? But yet when we talk about the workplace, it becomes a bit more challenging. All right, I noticed the results are changing. It depends on who answers, right? So let's see whether anyone else have it. All right, this is the last exercise. So if you look back at your Menti, you will notice it say go to the next slide. Now this slide is important for me and for you. This slide is going to help you process out your own belief system, right? So there are 6 categories when it comes to which statement is true to you. So earlier on, I asked you about how loyalty is, and majority of us say loyalty is important. The second slide gives us an idea about who's watching. Now, this particular one is to find out what do you believe about the whole topic of loyalty. So I have 6 statements here. It's interesting, if you look in these particular responses, loyalty is conditional here gains a lot of point, right? It does tell us that, maybe the understanding of loyalty from different generation differs quite a lot, or because of organizational influences. Employees should be loyal to organization because they got a job is only 9. Whereas loyalty is conditional is 18, double the amount. Loyalty means working long for organization. So people do believe if you work longer means you're more loyal. An employee needs to be more loyal to the manager, but they also believe that a manager needs to be more loyal to the employee, right? And then loyalty means obey the leader because the leader knows best. Now, if you look at this chart, right, I think it's about taking a moment to look at it and for you to reflect, what does this mean, right? That when we say loyalty is conditional, is that loyalty? So I think that's the question. And let me,
I guess the point is that all of us, we looking for a win-win situation. So it's loyal, but there must be a win-win situation, right? That's what I can see from this result.
Yeah, you're right. So once again, if you think about it, the perspective, the perspective of loyalty differs from generation. If you think about it, when we talk about, so I used to run a lot of multi-generational programs, and one of the things we notice is the baby boomers, their loyalty came about because they were going through war and there was a lot of suffering, and opportunities was little bit. So whatever opportunity they have, they were very, very appreciative of it. And therefore, the idea of loyalty back then is you don't think about as long as you have it, you should be grateful. That was the perspective of the baby boomers, because they grew up in an era where they have nothing at all, right? So it's not a two-way, that's one. Secondly, back in the baby boomers' day, education wasn't a commodity. Not everybody's educated. Therefore, those who are educated are in a better position, and people listen to the educated people because the understanding is you are more educated, you should know what to do, and therefore I listen to you. That was back then. In today's context, education is already, it's open to the masses. So people are saying, hey, wait a minute, I cannot necessarily trust you 100%. I also need to think for myself. And therefore, this shift in terms of education, this shift in terms of choices and access to information have actually changed perspective of loyalty, right? Punita shared, I was and still are loyal to the person's well-being. My feedback to them was based on what I believe the best for them. And I expect the same in return. I encourage officers to accept office offers from outside organization or promotion within. So Punita, I think what you're doing is amazing. It's very much in line with what we talk. The fact that I encourage to accept offers from outside organization, because why? You over here, what we're going to talk about when we talk about loyalty is about loyalty to the individual, not to the organization, and you are helping them. But at the same time, one thing that you brought up that was interesting is I expect them to do the same in return. Now, this is where we need to recognize, as individuals become individuals, we have the way we look at things can be quite different, right? So I link loyalty to the person, great, not to the organization, great. You and I, we are on the same page on that. Okay, let me move on. Let me move on from here. And I like Punita's perspective because it's very similar to where I'm coming from. Now, as I shared and based on your feedback, right? The thing about loyalty and what I call the dilemma with loyalty, and this is really about leaders, is that we first need to recognize when we are an organization, the way organization function and the way community function is different. If you think of loyalty, most of the time it resides within a community or within a family. Why? Because loyalty is a humanistic value. Loyalty talks about two persons that pledges allegiance to each other and believes that both will try to help each other. Now, that is a humanistic value. Whereas, which is loyalty is to the person. Whereas an organization, when organization is, which is a performance driven, which means you are valuable when you contribute. That is the basis when we talk about organization. Loyalty is about retaining who can perform. So the more you can add value to the organization becomes more loyal to you. So that's why we talk conditional. And we need to recognize this, right? Now, what happens because of that? Because loyalty is a humanistic value and loyalty is to the person, one of the things that made sense to me when I work with managers who kind of be upset when the staff leave is to recognize, they notice staff leaving as a form of disloyalty, right? Is deemed disloyal because they are leaving the manager. It's not because they are leaving the company. So because if it is a humanistic value, if you're looking from an organizational perspective, while they want loyalty, basically organization has this belief that if our systems and processes are in place, people can come and go and the organization will still work. The only reason organization do not want people to move is because the learning cycle is long for staff. Usually staff takes about 3 to 6 months before they become highly productive, right? That's very common. Now, so how do we address this dilemma? So one of the things that we need to address this dilemma is this whole idea to differentiate the person from their role. I talked a fair bit on this in the first video called Leading for Productivity. And we need to be able to say, okay, this person is an individual. This individual has beliefs in loyalty, which if we look at our first survey, it agrees. But in terms of the role, he is not satisfied with the role or the role is not fulfilling what he needs. So we need to differentiate. And if we are able to differentiate, then loyalty doesn't become an issue because we are starting to look at, okay, I need to help this person grow, but I also need him to help me. So we need to separate this, right? So this is one major mindset shift we need to do. Don't assume just because the person leaves, he is disloyal. If you look at our survey just now, our majorities believe that loyalty is important. So this is the dilemma with loyalty, right? And why? We need to recognize context. In organization, when they want loyalty, they want it because you benefit them. Think about it. If you are a manager and your staff is not performing, do you want to keep your staff? If you don't want to keep the staff, then question is, are you disloyal? Or if you're trying to get rid of your staff, question is, are you disloyal? Because loyalty means my interest is in you. It's not performance-based, right? So that's something to reflect. Now, then it goes to the whole question of, okay, but then why do leaders still want, so why do leaders in organization are still talking about, people, loyalty is important. From my working with a lot of leaders, there's two conclusions I came with, and after this, I'm going to check with you whether do you agree or disagree with this. The two driving point is this. Firstly, the leader has a sense of being needed. That means it's a matter of self-esteem issue. Do I feel rejected? I want people to like me. So that's one thing. That's why they want loyalty, because they want to feel needed. They want to feel wanted. That's the first one. The second one is they want loyalty because the staff makes their job easy, right? Because let's say in a team, maybe you have 2 persons who are your high performers, and these 2 persons addresses most of your problems and challenges. These 2 persons makes it easy for you to have a relative easy time in work because they settle everything. And therefore, if they leave, you get upset or you say they're disloyal, because when they leave, it makes things more difficult for you, right? So these are the two areas that why leaders talk about loyalty, or what I consider they use loyalty as a basis of saying why the staff should stay, right? Now, if you have any question, any point, agreement, disagreement, please put in the chat box. That will be very helpful, right? Because what's important is for me to know whether you can resonate with it, you find these points valid or not. Somebody has something to say, is it?
I think it's from Fazrul.
Okay, so now, question is, how then do we address these challenges? Now, for a leader who has a sense of, I need to be needed, I need to feel wanted, and I see this a fair bit in organizations where whenever a leader's employee call them to help, the leader actually feel useful, right? And to me, I don't think that's very, very healthy. So if a leader's issue is, I want to feel needed, I want to feel wanted. If you leave me, you are disloyal because to me, it feels like a rejection. Then I think, firstly, the leader needs to recognize that this is a problem for the leader. Secondly, I think these are what we call inner work, which means it's something that has to do with self-esteem, self-value. These are more inner work. You do need to find maybe a coach or a psychiatrist or psychologist to be able to work with you to address this. Because what I noticed is how you feel on the inside affects how you lead on the outside. If you are insecure, then the tendency is you want staff who's always agreeing with you. You don't want staff to leave you, but you don't mind leaving your staff. So that happens at the internal work. So I find when I develop new managers, one of the main things that we work on is what's on the inside. You address what's on the inside, on the outside, it becomes easier. So find somebody that you can work with, and it's because this is very personal and sensitive. You want to work with somebody who will keep the confidential situation with you, right? So this is where coaching comes into place. This is where having a friend who doesn't tell everybody about your problems in place, and for you to talk about it. Now, when it comes to making things easy, which means I want the staff to be loyal because it makes my stuff easy, then there are two crucial skill sets that I find is very useful to eliminate this problem. Now, first is about delegation skill. So put it in a situation, if you have only one staff who can do the job, you become dependent on the staff. If you become dependent on the staff, you will either go in the way of manipulation, where you want to say, oh yeah, loyal staff are great. So you use loyalty as a way to hook the staff in, because in the Malaysian culture where it's highly relational, people take the word trust and people take the word loyalty very seriously. So sometimes without realizing it as a leader, we tend to blackmail people by saying we need loyal staff. Now, and the reason we do that is because no one else can do the job. So in this area, as a leader, you do need to delegate and develop more people who can do the same job. Maybe not 100%, but at least fair enough. Now, once you have that, you are not heavily dependent on that one or two staff, right? So delegation skill is key, but there's an emotional resistance when it comes to delegation, right? I've covered that on the first video. So go and check out the first video if that's helpful. Now, the second skill set is called career conversation. And this is where it's important to recognize employees today has very different idea of success. Employees today have very different challenges. Employees today have very different approach to getting what they want. And we need to recognize that. And career conversation is a skill set that helps you as a leader to understand this first. Now, I wouldn't say a lot, from the managers I spoke, a lot of managers I know, they do care for the staff, but they take a very fatherly approach, which means I know what I will teach you what you should learn. I will develop you in the way which I think you should be developed. Now, that is okay if it is your child, but it may not be okay when you're developing a talent because, hey, the talent came from a different family, has different needs and wants. So career conversation is critical for you to explore and understand what they want from their perspective, and then you come in to develop and support them in a way that is beneficial to them, right? So this is what I want to talk about, loyalty. If there's any questions, anything, any agreement, disagreement, please feel free to.
Isaac, I'm looking at the different perspective, perspective from employers or management point of view, where loyalty can be a tools to get things done, you know.
Yeah.
So when you have a loyal workers or loyal subordinates or loyal environment, or workers with you, so that can be said as a tools to get things done. Because if you have a loyal people, they can actually go beyond, you know, they can work beyond the office hours because they are loyal to bosses or they are loyal to the company. So that is the advantages of it. Or they can go beyond their existing skill to get things done because they are loyal. That is the value which is created to get things done. So that's how I can one of the perspective that I can see from here.
I agree. Now, question is, if I'm asking you to do more, are you expecting for me to compensate or reward you more?
If we have the sense of loyalty, I think we do not expect more because we are loyal, right? In terms of that. So that's why that value of loyalty is actually empower the management or the leadership because they can get things done by having that kind of values in their workers. That's how I see it.
I agree. Now, so that's why I mentioned from the start, this is a very sensitive topic because loyalty is a humanistic value. If you think about it, loyalty comes with trust. And question is, how much of us do trust our management? So if there is no trust, then loyalty becomes a tool to just get more things done out of the worker. All right.
Okay, we have feedback here.
Yeah. So loyalty needs to be appreciated. All right. Loyalty needs to be appreciated, which means we do need to have conversations around it. The challenge is most people assume we mean the same thing when we use the word loyalty. Now, for example, to me, loyalty is when a person is willing to do extra for you. That's one. But it's also, is a person talking about you positively? To me, that's loyalty. It's not about how long you stay in an organization, right? George said loyalty in leaving the organization is not disloyal. What is disloyal is that they disclose company's information when they leave, right? So it's an interesting fact, right? So once again, George agrees in that sense. It's not about disloyal when you leave, but if you start to do things to hurt the company. So I fully agree with you. So, which is why it's very important. No, which is why this topic came about. Because some managers, when they know the staff leave, they make it very difficult for the staff. And they start to treat the staff badly. So the staff disclose because it's a retaliation to what the managers does. Now imagine this. If you are my staff and I'm your manager and you tell me you are leaving, And I am happy for you because you living is you achieving what you want and all. And I, instead of being upset with you, I'll tell you, hey, Farid, stay in touch when you leave. I would love to see how else I can develop you. If you have anything that you're struggling in your new workplace, let me know. I will share my thoughts on how you can address it. Question is, if I do that to you, Farid, would you do anything to hurt me or not?
I see this, what Mr. George said. This is not the case of disloyal. This is the case of unethical. For
True.
professionals, this is called unethical. For me, this
Correct.
is not the case of loyalty. This is the case of unethical professionals.
Yeah.
You should not do this.
True. Now, once again, as I mentioned, right, because we have different understanding of the word loyalty. Firstly, if you are an owner, you have a different perspective of loyalty. If you're a manager, you have a different perspective of loyalty. If you are a subordinate or direct report, you have a different perspective of loyalty. So it's important to. So one of the things that I used to do frequently as an engineer is always say, so what is our indicator? In a lot of organizations, loyalty is measured by time, how long you are in the company. That is how organization measure loyalty, right? So if you look from that perspective, then people start to have negative perspective of it. So for example, what George mentioned to you, it's about ethics, but to George is about disloyal. Now, but this is where we talk about how the manager treats the staff when the staff leaves. If the manager values loyalty and the staff leaves the organization, and the manager makes the staff leaving as a very painful experience, now the staff would retaliate, and that is normal human behavior, right? But if the manager makes the staff leaving a positive experience, and in my case, when I left the consulting company, I was in Singapore, my boss actually sat me down, and it was a lady, and she was like, no, hey, good job. Let me know if you ever need any help, if you need any thoughts, if you need anyone to bounce off idea, please let me know. So for me, leaving the organization and leaving my manager was a very positive experience, and we still stay in touch to today. We still text each other, and the whole idea is this: if you focus on mutual benefits, means I help you, you help me, then what will happen is down the line, when she needs help, I have no issue helping her because I can see that she is loyal to me as a person, to me as a friend, right? So that's something for us to take note. Especially like in some companies, they have a policy of people who leave cannot join back. I think in today's generation, if you still have the policy, you are on the losing end. Because guess what? Sometimes a new staff goes around a few companies and suddenly realize that they want to work for you because you are developing them. And if the company has a policy that we won't hire back, then the company has just missed an opportunity, because guess what? When an ex-staff comes back, they come back with your competitor's knowledge. Something to consider.
That
right?
is brilliant. I think all the big corporations out there should be listening to this.
Yeah. Right. And I noticed this is more with more Asian-based company rather than Western-based companies, right? Because the Western-based company, they are very clear about mutual benefits. In the Asian-based company, because we are very highly relational and our focus is always on humanistic value, we tend to take people leaving more negatively, and therefore we put such clause. Surprisingly, there are still companies that's doing that. So for a company who has a policy of not hiring a returning staff, you want to consider that. I'm working with a MNC that actually says it's okay to bring back the person, but obviously there's a time gap, but they are perfectly open to that, and I think companies should look at that. All right. Oppo says loyalty nowadays at work is hard to come by. Favoritism occurs and openly practiced. Bad leadership deters one from being loyal to leaders. Now, loyalty is humanistic value. So we do need to recognize that firstly, which is why in organizational context, when I work with leaders in organizational context, my focus is mutual benefits, because it's easy to talk about. It's hard to talk about loyalty because it's humanistic and it's very dependent on the person as well as the generation, right? Now, when we come to favoritism, I think in my first video or one of the other video, we talk about this whole thing about building a strategic network. The fact of the matter is favoritism will always be around, because as human beings, it is our natural tendency to favor those who we feel safe with, right? So that's one thing. But the other part of it is, and what just addressing what Oppo talks about, is as a leader, you need to be very clear between the person and their role. You want to be fair to the role, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with liking the person, right? So don't run away from your managers. That's one of the things I notice a lot of people, because they scared favoritism, they don't even make friends with the manager. Right? Loyalty is when the manager says jump, employees ask how high. Wow, that's amazing, right? That sounds like blind loyalty, Gabriel said. Now, Gabriel, it's interesting. I had opportunity to work with one of the leading property developers in Malaysia. And I tell you, the level of loyalty, the level of what we say, cult following is amazing. People literally will stretch themselves just to get it done. Now, you ask me, is that possible? Question is, it does happen, right? So once again, loyalty is you say blind loyalty, but the thing is this: if I feel that what you have to say is meeting my needs, then I will give you whatever you want. Unfortunately, other people will say blind loyalty, but to me, I don't see it as blind loyalty. So it's a perspective. All right. All right. So thank you very much for the responses. And Hisham says,
Hisham.
this I call not only loyal, but employees are high performance. Now, question is this: if employees, and this is my experience perspective, a high performance employee will stay with you as long as you allow them to be high performance. The moment you start to control them because you scared they outshine you, they will leave. And it's not because that they are loyal. It's so to them, the issue is never loyal or disloyal. The issue has always been, are you allowing me to do what I'm capable of doing, right? So this is where loyalty becomes a question, because as I mentioned just now, sometimes leaders use loyalty as a way to control people, right? So I think we really need to recognize that, which is why the whole idea is to shift the paradigm, right? And it's not an easy paradigm to shift, because it requires you to first to say, okay, maybe I'm using loyalty as a way to control people. If you can come to the recognition, then shifting to mutual benefits becomes a lot easier. Now, I put these two statements here. All generation want the same thing. And I also put a statement, different generation value different thing. If you want some, I have some slides or some information with regards to multi-generational. If you want, please write in to me. I'll give it to you, right? Now, why were we saying this? All generation want the same thing. If you think about it, grandfather, parents, us, all of us want to be happy. All of us want to feel successful. But our definition of success and what constitutes happiness is different by generation. Why? In the olden days, there are very few things. There are very few jobs. There are very few options. If you remember the famous line by Henry Ford, you can have the car in any color as long as it is black. That tells you there are not many choices in those days. So in the past, people learn to be happy with whatever you have. You only have Colgate and Daki. You don't have any other brands. Today, you have a lot of brands. Today you have tons of shoe polish. In those days, you only have Kiwi, right? So you notice those days, there's no choice. There are very little choices, and therefore people learn to be happy with the choices. But today, what people want is different. It's no more just about the brand, it's about the brand experience. So what they want is happy, and this is common. And being happy is common across all generations. Now, what is different is really about how to attain it and choices. For example, in those days, we say you need to work hard to do well. Today, with YouTube, with social media, you realize the employees today will say, why do I need to go through the same hardship as you did to gain the same thing that you have if I can find a shorter way? Right? Obviously, the older generation will say, oh, because hard work is important to develop character. But, the argument sounds nice, but it may not be relevant. Because why? The younger generation have not struggled like the older generation. Struggling creates appreciation. Let me say that again. Struggle creates appreciation. If a person have not struggled, they can't appreciate it. So even for the whole idea of loyalty, which means I just work for the company and I believe the company take care of me, that may be the older generation's values. In the younger generation, values is, hey, it's not that the company gave me a job. It is a benefit to each other. The company gave me a job, but at the same time, I'm contributing to the company. So the perspective has changed, right? And because of that, you realize employees today will leave even without a job. Why? Because a lot of it, a lot of this issue has to do with perspective. And this picture tells it all, right? Every generation view loyalty as important. Remember our first survey, majority says loyalty is important, but the understanding and context is different. As you notice, majority talks about loyalty being conditional, and and that is the majority of the workforce. They are saying it's conditional. So for us as leaders, if we expect a person to go and beyond without any pairing with something that benefit them, then they are going to say it's going to be a waste of my time, right? So question is, whose perspective should we take? Now, as a leader, maybe if I'm somebody older as a leader, I would say, oh, the direct report needs to listen to me because I know best what's for them. May be true, may not be true. So do we stick with the way the leader's perspective, or do we stick with the youngest perspective that says that, hey, you know what? I will stay on with the company and I want to build the company, but the company needs to listen to me also because I do have ideas for the company. Which perspective do we take? So what's interesting was, I actually did a quick survey, and this is taken by Statistica, it's a market research company, and this is the labor workforce in 2019. If you look the total workforce, which is 15 million, out of it 20 to 39, so these are all the younger generations, right? They constitute about 61% of our workforce. And this is the workforce that has the mentality of, of I want to contribute. If I don't get a job, if I don't get what I want, I will leave the company. This is the majority of it. So 61% of our workforce today are the younger generations. And if we are in the more older generation says that, hey, you should still listen to me, then from an organization perspective, we need to ask, should we start adapting to the younger ones? And for the younger ones, it is mutual benefit. You help me, I help you. That's the younger generation. Why? If we don't adapt, then our organization will go for cliffhanger. That means by the time we have the younger ones coming up to senior leadership, your organization is going to struggle, right? Because there's too many changes that needs to be done. So I hope for some of you, this becomes a stark reality about who should adapt to who with regards to opportunity. So how do we, so in doing this, right, we recognize in today's context, loyalty is an outcome. So we don't demand loyalty, but if we give them what they want, they will be loyal. So let me give you an example. A client of mine, because they know the younger generation comes into the workplace, they may not really know what they want, that's one. And secondly, they have the belief that if you do what you are good at, or if you do what you want, you will be more productive. So in that company, they allow people to move laterally across departments. So maybe every 2 years, they are allowed to move if they want. That's one perspective. Second, that's the company I work with, right? Now, why do they do that? Because if the employee is able to do what they enjoy within the company as a whole benefits, because they still maintain the guy, and the guy is continuously producing in the company. And because he's moving from department to department, he's actually able to understand the entire company and not just from one department, where we talk about being silo. If you look at a company like Shell, they have a policy that every couple of years, a staff needs to reapply for a new job within the company. So it forces the person to go beyond their current job itself. Now, in companies like Shell, because they have such policy which requires you to be moving to different sites, people don't talk about loyalty anymore. People talk about benefits. I benefit, you benefit. So that's what's going on in such a place, right? All right, so Surya said, I will stay loyal as long as, see, the fact that she says, as long as, that is conditional. Whereas the older generation talks about loyalty. I should, because the company gave me a job, I should appreciate it and I will stay all the way. Sorry, Surya, maybe line broken. I was saying, when you say I will stay as long as my bosses, so that's what we call conditional. And that's why we talk mutual benefit. If you look at the older generation where jobs were not a lot, people become so thankful that they get a job, that they stay the job, even if the bosses mistreated them. Because why? I should be appreciative of the job. In today's context, we don't think that way anymore, right? And what you mentioned, talks about what we talk about mutual benefit, I will stay as long as they are respecting me. Right now, so here are some of the things without going into a long conversation about the younger generation. I will flash with you. You agree, disagree, respond, and we can take it from there. These are some of the things that I noticed with the today's generation as to why we need to talk about mutual benefits. Because in order to be mutually beneficial, we need to understand them. The younger generation, they want to direct their own life, so they have an idea of what they want. They want to be treated like an adult. Okay, so let me go one by one. They want to direct their life. They may not be interested in going up to a position of MD or CEOs. They may be thinking about, hey, Isaac, in 5 years' time, I want to run my own cafe. So they are not interested in the vertical progression. So you'll notice the younger workforce today would also be interested in doing cross-department activity. That means going around. So question, does your organization allow that? One. Secondly, does your manager allow that? I've seen companies where they have a policy that staff can apply for lateral transfer, but the manager don't allow it because the manager sees that as an act of disloyalty to that manager. So remember that today's staff wants to direct their life. Now they want to be treated like an adult. Because a lot of them come in and some of the older managers will say, oh, this guy is new, I need to tell them what's going on. They tend to treat the employee as a staff, right? They tend to treat the employee as somebody young has to listen. Now, this is where I think just now Surya talked about respect. Employees today want you to respect them, not because of the knowledge. They want you to respect them as a person, which means don't make assumptions for that. One of the practices I do is, even if I think the fellow will say no, I will still ask, for example, hey, you mentioned the last week that you're not interested, but I'm just wondering whether you want to do this. And the whole idea is you want to let them say no to you instead of making assumptions, right? All right. Then the third one, they want to be accepted. Accepted meaning if you have a very wild and crazy idea, let them say it out, because it's about acceptance. Today's workforce wants to be in a place where they feel accepted, where they feel the ideas are not being laughed at, where they can do whatever they want to accept. So that's what. Now, they want to test out their concepts. And this is something I find very interesting. We are in a generation where knowledge is plenty. You can get knowledge anywhere. So for the younger generation, they are what I call knowledge-rich, experience poor. Why? Because parents protect them from any bad experiences. So they don't have experience. So can you imagine for 20, 24, 23 years of their life, they have been doing a lot of reading, experimenting a little bit. They never had to go and sell stuff and all. And then come to the workplace. So they are now very excited to experiment, to try out things which they believe work or don't work, to try out concepts that they have read. So they become very excited and eager to try out stuff. So question, do we allow them to fail, right? So that's something that really has to be taken into consideration. Oops, sorry. They want opportunity. So once again, today's generation have shorter attention span, and their shorter attention span isn't their fault. Their shorter attention span is because as parents, when they were growing up, every time they are bored, we give them new toys. So, children 10 years ago have probably more toys than any of us growing up. Because when we are bored, we get new toys, bored, get new toys. So because of that, their attention span has become shorter. Think about it. People are now going to Twitter instead of Instagram, because Twitter is just 1 minute. Instagram is a longer video. So you notice our attention span is getting shorter and shorter. If you look at universities today, reading books, it's a chore. People want to look at video, right? Because video is becoming more interesting. So we need to recognize that they want to experiment their concept and they want to try out new stuff. And finally, they have ideals. With the older generation, we are more, I wouldn't say we are more, I would say the fact that we went through hardship and even war and all has made us to recognize, okay, the world is like this. With the younger generation, because of the internet, because of the information that being fed, we have a more ideal scenario of how world should be. We talk about human rights and all. And therefore, the younger generation have ideals which they believe companies should practice, which is why CSR, which used to be a good to have, is becoming a must-have today as part of your employee retention program. Because why? The younger generations have ideals. So anything to cast questions on this part about the younger generation? Do you agree, disagree? Do you face such challenges with them, and how do you deal with them? I think the older generation, because we want people to be safe, we try to protect them. But protecting them is actually making them frustrated, right? And therefore, I personally believe the younger generation are willing to work much harder if you allow them to do something that they totally believe in. If it's something that they're totally committed, they will go 150%. That's my belief and what I've seen. If not, think about it. A lot of the fintech companies today are started by the younger generation. And they don't sleep. They work throughout. So how can we say they are strawberry? How can we say that they are soft? If they are willing to work day and night to get their companies running. Imagine a company that gets a loan for 50 million. The fellow is not just doing a 9-to-5 job, I can assure you that. So the younger generation will work harder, will be more loyal from a productivity angle if we are able to give them what they want and they will give us what we want. So this is why shift is important.
Isaac,
Yes, sir.
Can I say that nowadays corporations should redefine the term of loyalty, besides of what is mentioned as blind loyalty to the loyalty as it is in a win-win situation loyalty. Is it what you are saying?
Yeah. So the irony is this: corporations have already adjusted it, which is why everything that organization does, even loyalty program, is all to make sure that employees stay to produce more work. Organization has also put in which is why we do performance management. Those who are not performing are pushed out, right? So therefore, only the performers will stay. So organization have no issue with this. The challenge is when leaders believe the staff should stay, even when the staff is no more benefiting from the organization. From an organization perspective, is if the staff is performing more, they will be rewarded more. But not from but if the manager's perspective of loyalty is you must be loyal to me even if you do not benefit it, you must stay on. So that's where the challenge comes. So you're right, organization have taken on this already.
Okay, we have one feedback from Chia.
Yeah. See,
so nowadays,
they say the generation is getting scarce as competition is becoming much more intense. Now, think about it. Because competition is becoming more intense, there are more opportunities actually. His question is, are we given in organization, are they given opportunities, or are organization becoming very cautious? Now, one of the things that we need to recognize in today's organization, if you are too risk adverse, I'm talking in general, obviously some industry, you need to have safety important, but in a law industry, you need to be less risk adverse in order to capitalize opportunity. I shared in my previous sharing about how SQ has shortened their approval process to only 3 levels instead of everything, which means SQ is mindful that, if a decision will be made wrong, but we cap it at a certain level. So what this tells us is in today's generation or in today's organization, if your organization wants to go fast, you must be willing to take risks, which means staff is going to make mistake, but you let them start first. The problem is when we have the old mindset of, management have to see whether this is a safe project to give the staff. That's where you will see it scarce. Think about it. If there's competition, there's more opportunity, right? If there's competition, there's more opportunity. I'm just giving you a very general statement on this, right? I work one company because their product go into aviation. So obviously they don't play the same game. For them, aviation means security and safety. So therefore their product has not changed a lot, right? Because you need a lot of safety testing. Okay, so that's why I can respond to Chia on that. Now, let me go into the skills part. So I kind of covered this morning in terms of we need to be realistic about what this loyalty is in organization versus human. And as leaders, we need to keep it separate. When a staff leave us, they're actually not leaving us. They are leaving the job because the job is no more beneficial to them, right? And we need to recognize we are still staying on because we are benefiting them from something. For example, if you are a manager now at the age of 35 and above, you probably have children, have families, and therefore a stable job is important to you. For the young generation, a stable job is not important to them. For a young person, perhaps an opportunity to develop different skill sets becomes more important. In fact, I just spoke to one person, to a friend of mine who just left the company. And his point is, I better try now because I have nothing to lose. I'm still young. So for them, it's about developing the different skill sets that they need. So organizations need to learn to tap on that part, right? Then we went to shifting to mutual benefits. And the recognition is this. The way loyalty is defined today is a lot more mutual benefits, which means as a manager, you need to make sure that whatever you're getting the staff do is benefiting them. Pay is no more a benefit. Pay is an expectation. So you're looking in terms of motivational theory, there's this thing called hygiene factor. Pay and benefits today is hygiene, which means it's expected. It is not a, wow, I should appreciate pay, right? And therefore, the mutual benefits that comes in today's context is whenever you are able to make sure that the work you give to your direct report benefits them at their level, either in terms of developing a skill that they want or exposing them to the opportunity that they want. That's what they are looking for. If you as a manager still see the fact that, they're getting a salary, they are getting a job, and therefore they should give loyalty, then that may not be the best perspective. See, so Surya mentions that, right? During my younger days, I need more experience training. If no more to learn, I leave. So this is exactly the perspective of today, right? And this is where managers have to realize that and say, okay, let me match this. In fact, the practical example I will give is this, and this is shared by a friend of mine. He found that his staff is already at the ceiling, can't go because promotion, there's always limited. So but he knows the staff wants to do this. So he has a friend in another company. He actually recommended the staff to leave the company and join the other company. Now, he did that because he was loyal to the staff as a person, not to the job. And what happened subsequently when he left and he went to another company and he needed someone with high capability, he actually contacted the staff and the staff joined him back again because loyalty is to the person, not to the job. We need to recognize that. So now that we say, okay, fine, Isaac, it is about mutual benefits. So how do we get that started? Now, there are two pieces of conversations. As a leader, the ability to communicate and the ability to have communication, to have conversation with your staff is perhaps the most critical skill that you need to master as a leader, right? There are two types of conversations that I want to share with you this morning that is going to be very helpful towards these mutual benefits. The first is called a career conversation. Now, a career conversation is to understand the staff career ambition and aspiration. And also, now the benefit of this is it puts the responsibility of the staff career development in their hands. So as manager, you don't have to stress about it. So career conversation one. Now, the second one is one-to-one conversation. And this is more we call check-ins, right? Where the manager checking with the staff to see how they are doing. So these two conversations support each other. So let me kind of start with the first career conversation. Now, in the past, okay, so career conversation and performance appraisal conversation is two different things, right? So this career. Now, in the past, you will hear managers asking questions like, where do you see yourself 3 years from now in this organization? Now, we need to recognize today employees are not keen to stay in the organization long because for them, it's about me. So today, perhaps, so in a career conversation, today, we want to ask for the staff, what's your ultimate goal? Are you interested to becoming CEO of a company or do you want to start your own? What? So it's about asking them what are their plans. So whenever you have a career conversation, let's talk about the value to you first. Firstly, it places responsibility of success in their own hands. One of the biggest frustration leaders have is trying to figure out how to develop the staff. And most of the time they develop the staff based on what they need. Now, the challenge with that is the staff becomes demotivated or they don't put in 100% because, they're just doing whatever you tell them. So by doing career conversation, you're actually saying, hey, this is what you want, which goes to the second one. Position yourself as their resource to achieve success. So when you do a career conversation well, what happens is the staff sees you giving them an assignment as literally you providing them opportunity to develop the skills that they want. Right? So you have literally turned the table around and using career ambition to motivate them. Now, if you do career conversation properly, you realize motivating them is easy. All you need to do is, for example, Farid, you told me that you want to pick up this particular skill. I have given you this project. What's the issue here? Why aren't you? What's the challenge that you're facing? So this is where career happens, right? All right. So this is the benefit of career conversation. How often? I would suggest do half yearly. Half yearly, and it's not a performance appraisal conversation. So remember that this shouldn't be done together during performance appraisal. Now the focus is on their career ambition, what they want to do, share your plans of what you might want them to do. So for example, what's your long-term career goal? You know, I'm totally okay if it's not with this company, but I'm just interested to know what are some of the things you want to achieve and all. So you want to have an open conversation. And in this conversation, you do not want to be telling them what they should be thinking. You just want to listen to them.
Share your plans. That's the thing, Isaac, because there must be a correct method of doing this, because you see, there is a stigma that when you ask question, the staff will actually answer. They are thinking of they should give out answer the way you want it to be, you know.
Yes.
So when you ask them, so they might think like if they actually answer something else, oh, this will change the perception of my boss towards me. So I will be losing opportunity and so on. So how do we go about this? What is the best approach to actually have this conversation?
Okay, so to go into the details, those who are interested, drop me an email. I will share with you a 1 hour webinar I did specifically on career conversations. And the whole idea is this: as a manager, firstly, we need to hold back and say, okay, instead of this, what I want you to do, I need to hear what your plans are, right? And then after you hear their plan, you need to ask yourself, what is it that you need them to do for you? So let me share with you the next slide of how this is done. Now, so this is what is happening in a career conversation. You as the manager, you have your interests. You want them to do certain things. Now, they come to the workplace having their interests, right? So for example, I shared previously, I was working with this client and one of the executives basically says, I plan to start my own business. I am now trying to understand how organizations are structured. So when he is in the company, he's actually trying to understand how does organizations structure themselves, because when he opens his own business, he knows how to structure his business. So he's very clear. Now that's his interest. Now, when we talk about mutual benefit is what is it that I want him to do and what is it that he wants to do becomes overlap. So question is, if the fellow says, I said, I want to start a business and that's their interest. How do I work with that? Now, obviously, the next point is we want to talk about career goals, ambition. So break it down from something that's very big. For example, I want to start a cafe to career ambition. Okay, you want to start a cafe, what kind of cafe, right? Or what do you want to achieve? So now that you started working, in the first 3 years of your career, what are the skills that will be helpful towards your cafe? So you want to start thinking of skills, knowledge, and experiences that they believe is going to help them open a cafe. So for example, and I've shared this previously with one of the participants that I was working with, the staff wanted to open a restaurant, and therefore the staff realized one of the skills that the staff needs is finance, or how to use Excel, right? And for me as a manager, if I need people to do some kind of report writing or some kind of analytics which requires Excel skill, I will then position it that, if you want to learn Excel, I will give you this project. And in this project, as you're doing for me, you're going to pick up the Excel skill that is going to benefit you when you open a cafe. Now, imagine how motivating it is for the staff to do this work that I'm giving him. Because why? This staff now realize by doing what I need him to do is going to benefit his interests, right? So this is how we talk about a mutually beneficial conversation to make sure that the staff gets what they want and I get what I want. Does this give you a sense of it, Doctor?
Yeah, but maybe the initial challenge is to get the honest answer from them, because where we do not want, we are shaping their answers because they're afraid they might give a bad impression to you. as their boss. That is, I think that is the preliminary challenge, the
Correct,
main challenge of it.
Agreed. So that's the reason why this whole topic is talking about moving from loyalty to mutual benefit. Loyalty means you reflect me. Mutual benefits, I'll do my part, you do your part. If you don't do your part, you need to back up. So that's why the mindset is the most critical part when you want to address this whole career conversation. Which is why I started with this whole talk by recognizing as a leader, sometimes I need to work on my own self first before I do a career conversation. Now, a lot of times managers are shaping the person towards what they want because the manager's agenda is, I need to get this done. And this fella is a tool for me to achieve what I want now. That is a dangerous mindset. The mindset a manager wants to take is, okay, obviously this fella has something that he wants, I also have something that I want. And I need to find a middle ground. So when you start having that kind of mindset, then this career conversation becomes a productive conversation because the manager is not going to say, hey, actually you should do this, you should do this. Remember I talked to you about, because as Asians, we tend to play more fatherly role. This is where we need to take a step back from that. We need to remember we are not their parents. We need to remember that they are adults, which goes back to my point about they want to be treated like adult. And we need to assume if that's what they want, we will learn to honor it. But at the same time, we will check with them from time to time. Now, I've given you a list here, and this is to help people. And whenever people say, oh, how do I do this skill? So if you, in any interest, right, anything a person wants to do in life, you can actually learn it in the workplace. For example, when I work with fresh graduates and basically fresh graduates, one of the point I tell them is, if you can learn the skill of developing difficult people, you can handle anything. And the point is this: usually in the first year, people don't become difficult. They get difficult in the second year. So you might want to purposely stay in the organization 1 to 2 years so you can develop the skill of dealing with difficult people. And that makes sense to a lot of them. So what I'm saying is, most skills, either people skill, organizational skill, leadership skill, technology skill, even functional skills, you can learn in an organization. And the best thing is, when you're learning in an organization, you are quite safe because there are safeguards for you. So as a manager, basically what we are saying is, whatever they want, those skills, those knowledge, and those experiences, they can, to a large extent, get from the organization. As a manager, we need to recognize that that is possible. Then the career conversation can happen. Right.
We have a comment from Mr. Alwi.
Yes.
Mr. Alwi highlighting some of the companies, mentioning US company are able to sustain workers more than 3 years. There are also such company like this. So what is your comment about this?
Which one was this?
Mr. Alwi.
Okay,
I found a US company having employees whom I was interviewed with having more than 10 years of employment with the organization. I mean, this is, this shows sort of loyalty values. Yeah.
See, you notice with the US company, and this is why we talk about mutual benefits. In the US companies, it's because it's performance-based, which means and in a performance-based environment, a few things happen. Firstly, are we creating an environment for performance? So an environment for performance focuses on continuous improvement, on adding value. And those are organizational values. So people will stay on because they are benefiting from it, not just from the pay, but also from the fact that it's adding value to their lives, right? So even when we talk today about work-life balance, that is a benefit in organization. So as long as they benefit from it, they will stay. So my example is my consultants and I, we work on contract basis. Now, they know that I do get them to do extra work than what they are paid, but the understanding between us is that I'm putting down those projects because developing the skill that they want. And the benefit that I get is it lowers my cost of operation. And the consultants and I, we are still working together. And it's very clear, it's not about, oh, you need to be loyal. No, it's about mutual benefits. And the premise I share with all my consultants is, the day you leave me is the day I've stopped giving you value. It's as objective as that. So this whole idea about low employee turnover, it's going to become lesser and lesser today. Because why? Nowadays, things are a lot faster. That's one. Secondly, the whole idea of lifelong employment, it's no more something people want, right? In fact, if you look at the trend today, there is a stronger push for people to move company every 3 years. So the trend of people staying long today is not there. You will have, but you won't have a lot because of change, right? What is staff tired to? Then, sorry, I also caught the last one that says fresh graduate and younger generation are not clear with their career goal. Now, so this ties back to the career conversation. The reality is this is going to happen. So once again, a career conversation is not an official document, it's informal. And so remember I was talking about one-on-one. Now, what happens is with the younger generation, they want to take control of their life, which means they think what they think is correct. And therefore, your job as a manager is to pace with them. If you're a runner, you know what this thing called pacing. So what happens is they will start their ambition, and then you can obviously throw in some question, challenge them. And if they are, after challenging them, they still say, this is what I want, then you give them opportunity. But hey, maybe half a year later, you sit down with them and you have another career conversation and say, hey, are you still working towards that goal? If you are still working towards that goal, I'll give you more stuff. So what we are not saying is you don't know what you want, despite the fact. But what we are doing is we are saying, okay, I'm actually giving you space to explore for yourself what works for you. So in a career conversation, it's not a one-off thing. It's an exploration, which means as a manager, if this is the first time you're doing career conversation, you need to have the assumption they may not be fully committed to it. They may change it 6 months down the road. You need to recognize that. But between now and the 6 months, you want to hold them to be committed to whatever that they have already said. So that's something that I would do with young talent. That's one. Secondly, currently I'm working with a local bank. Actually, it's a regional bank where when their new staff comes in, I actually run a different program to get them to realize what they want, right? And so that's another approach. You want to be able to consider having a program in your organization where you get the new talent to start asking themselves what exactly they want. The reason why I've developed that program is because I have managers that says my staff don't know what they want. So it's exactly what you want. Drop me an email. I will give you some pointers on what you can do in that program. Or if you're interested to work with me, let me know. All right. But you need to help your employees know what they want. So hopefully that addresses that question. Now, I'm just managing time. Okay.
You can go on with the
all right
presentation.
Now, so the question one of the usual question is, Isaac, what if what they want and what I want don't match? This is a very practical question. And this is where basically you need to do a trade. The famous saying, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, right? So this is where you want to do a trade with the staff. What does that mean? You help me. So for example, and this is practical for a new talent. A talent comes to join for you and says, oh, let me give an example. Says he joined production. And he said, actually, I joined production because the quality manager, the interview didn't go well, so I got the job. Let's assume the staff tells you that. Or let's assume that you found out that his interest is actually in quality, but he's being put in production. Now, question is, how can you position it to him? Or question is, how can he be more appealing to the quality manager? So I help you, you help me. So I will probably tell the staff, okay, I tell you what, if you want, I have no problem moving you. I have no problem letting you go to quality, but obviously the quality person will be wondering, why am I recommending you to them? Most of the time they will assume that you're not a performer. So why don't you do this for the next 1.5 years or 2 years? You work with me, you do what I give you, and you show me a performance. Now, once your performance is good, it's easy for me to recommend you to the quality manager that he's interested in quality. Guess what? If you are showing your performance, the quality manager has no issue taking you in because they know you are a proven result. You are not just potential, but you are a performer. Who doesn't want a performer? So that's how we talk about mutual benefits. This is one scenario. The other scenario is, like, say, for example, your staff wants to learn, let's say, you know that this staff loves doing social media stuff, right? And he's in production. Now, if he wants to take up some form of, you can always barter trade and say, okay, are you interested to attend some kind of social media training? Now, it's not part of his JD, but you want to be able to say, okay, I can do that, but there's this particular piece of work I need you to do. So let's do this. You help me do this, I will approve I will allow you to attend the training on social media. So that's why we talk about doing trade-offs. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I think that is also addressing Surya concern here. If you see from the chat box,
Right.
talking about the age staff, which actually hesitate to learn new things.
Right.
And then the concern is how to increase their productivity. I guess this actually address these questions, right? This is one of the approach that can be done.
Correct. So this is one of the approach, because, for example, right, you need to recognize for a staff who is older, they are not ambitious. For them is, I want to finish my work on time. I want to go home, spend time with my grandchildren. So their motivation is different. Their motivation is no more performance. So that's what they want. So, and therefore the thing is about want them to learn new things, right? Now, I think this is while this trade-off is important. So for example, okay, I can give you 9 to 5. Okay, if you want to do 9 to 5, boleh. Or you want to do this one, can. But the younger people, I will eventually overtake you and improve their pay. Are you okay with that? That's how the conversation I have with them. So in career conversation, one of the things we need to recognize, not everybody is ambitious. Some people are just happy where they are. And if you have an opportunity for them to do that, great, that's one. If you cannot, let's say your department is a high-performing department, then you want to bargain with them in terms of, okay, Farid, so I know that you just want a 9 to 5 job, and you're not interested to pick it up. Now, it can be challenging my department, but if you are open to it, I know a different department who has jobs which are quite routine and quite 9 to 5. Are you okay going to that department? Now, why would I do that? Because if I can move you, I can bring in another headcount. Does that make sense?
Sounds like it's a very soft try to actually chase people out from your leadership.
But this is where we talk about mutual benefit. I give you a place where you can still do 9 to 5. Right?
It's a solution. Yeah.
It's a solution. And it also allows me to bring in somebody. So this is what I mean by mutual benefits. And we need to be comfortable with this conversation. So on one hand, I know what are your career aspirations. For you, you're not interested in climbing the ladder. You're not interested to do extra. You just want to do enough. And I need to highlight for you, if you're going to stay in this department, I will need to start promoting your juniors above you. And you have to work with them because I need somebody to play at that level. If you're not keen, I'm fine, but I'm going to promote them. But I'm telling you because I want to give you the first, I want you the respect for it. But if you're telling me that you want to try that, I'll work with you. So that's the conversation I will have with people. And I will hold them to their word. Sounds like a threat. Actually, it depends. First, that's why building a conversation is important, which goes into the second one, which is one-on-one. Now, leaders today, I think, especially in manufacturing, we tend to be, a lot of leaders are still individual contributors. We are technical specialists. We only talk to our staff when there's work problem. One of the things that leaders need to do is you need to offload more of your work to your staff so that you can do what we call the one-on-one. Now, one-on-one basically is the value, it is to assess motivation level, is to evaluate change in your strategy with them, and then finally strengthen professional working relationship. So you want to meet your staff once a month at least to see, hey, how are you doing? Now, when you are having this conversation with them, it's not about problem solving. It's not about saying, okay, last week I've given you, have you done? It's not a follow-up. A one-on-one is to see how your staff is doing. Allow them to share their inputs, allow them to share their frustration, allow them to tell you what's going on, and then for you to also share them your observation. Like, I think I noticed you've been doing this, is good, or, I think I need you to do a little bit more of this. So you want to have that conversation. Now, if you do this on a regular basis, what's going to be very obvious is your staff knows that you care. Your staff knows that you're trying to develop them for their sake. And therefore, when you do the career conversation of I move you, it doesn't come as a threat. It comes more as, okay, if this is what you want, I will help you. So once again, as a leader in this whole area of moving from loyalty to mutual benefits, now you are basically saying, I want to help you, but you also need to help me. That is the conversation we are looking at, right? So because this is such a short conversation, it feels that way. But please write in to me. I will send you all the video on career conversations.
Just to remind you, Isaac, we have 7 more minutes.
Okay. I'm basically done.
Okay. Right. Okay.
If there's questions, please ask. Yeah. Now, so career conversation is a model, is a tool that I built into my new managers program. I did share this previously, and we have worked with a lot of new managers to kind of shift this mindset of loyalty to mutual benefits. So we have been doing that successfully since 2018.